Hi, everybody. This is Anna. So, I have a confession to make, something I've been holding out on from sharing with everybody. And that is when I do the healing work that I do, I see spirit. Now, this is something, as I look back in my life, I think I've always sort of encountered. But in the past in my life, I've been very shut it down about it. like I'm like, nope, not doing that, not paying any attention to that. So I feel like I effectively shut this awareness out of my life until very, very recently. So I feel like my life has been me kind of negotiating around this experience. So I went into the ministry, was ordained because I really truly wanted to help people transform their lives. But I discovered that in ministry, people are more often interested in being comforted in their current life situation than they are in transformation. So I was sort of the little, fly in the ointment that was always trying to get people to change. And maybe 5% of the people ever wanted to change. So I was just so annoying to the rest of them. So I discovered over time that it just wasn't the right match. So then I left ministry and I started doing spiritual direction, which is, I did a 3-year program of that, which was, it's still inside of the experience of the Christian church, but it's supposed to kind of get more into the issues of people's lives. But the approach was the evocative approach, which is basically asking questions and letting people get to their conclusions themselves. And then transformation happens very gradually. But it turns out I'm not patient enough for that. So in my 3rd year of my spiritual direction program, I took a course in holistic healing because I wanted to help people heal right away. And that was an amazing course, and I learned lots of interesting techniques and, was able to make really powerful transformations in myself. But it still didn't quite feel complete because I'm dancing around the truth, right? So then I took a course in reading tarot cards because I've always been fascinated with that. Although when I was younger, I was kind of in a church environment that was very fearful of tarot cards. So I started getting into tarot cards as sort of as a contemplation tool is what I was thinking. But as I started reading the cards for other people, which was part of the program I took, I realized that I knew things about people. People I didn't have any contact with, people on the other side of the world. I would read the spread and I would know something about them. And I would give the reading and the person would say, wow, that was exactly right on the mark. And I just kind of chalked it up to, well, I'm just really good at depicting the symbols on the cards or something. So I'm still kind of halfway in denial. So finally, I come around to the last few years. And one of my teachers from the holistic course contacted me. She wanted me to try out a new quantum healing process she had. So she gave it to me and I started using it as part of my training with her. And immediately it changed. I didn't do it the way she told me to do it, which she said was fine. Just follow your own path. So I'm doing this quantum healing process and I know there's something about this that is not matching what I've been told. But I don't look at it too closely. But it's very effective. Quantum healing, things are shifting. Pain is being reduced. I helped someone with fibromyalgia go from a 9 on the pain scale to 0. So I know it's effective, right? But I'm still not quite seeing what I don't want to see. And one day I was working with my partner. I have a partner who I do healing work with. And she knows me and I trust her. I was working with her and I was doing a quantum healing process and I saw a spirit attached to her. And it had a personality and it had a problem. And it was causing her pain. And I was able to talk to the spirit and convince it to let go and instead to flow through me into the light so it can be finished with the pain of this world and move on into the next world. And I shared with her what had happened. And, she didn't flinch. It didn't seem strange to her at all, right? And then I shared this with my husband, that I could see spirit. And once I had that experience, suddenly I could see them, lots of them gathered around me, like they were waiting their turn, waiting for me to wise up and realize that this was the missing piece of what I have been called to do. Told my husband, he just sort of looked at me like, well, yeah, I thought you always were seeing spirit. I thought that was what you were doing. And I realized that not for the first time in my life, I had finally gotten to a conclusion that other people around me already had. Like, I thought it was this groundbreaking revelation, and to them it seemed obvious. So now that I have finally agreed to this, I see spirit a lot. I don't see it as people's relatives, like talking to them. It's not that kind of spirit. It's more like pieces of people, like bad habits that people have. And maybe they have, moved on to the next world in their death, but there's this bad habit or pattern that is still free floating in the world. And I see it as an opportunistic piece of spirit. And what happens, the way I understand it, is if we have a pattern that's sort of unhealthy or stuck or painful, an opportunistic spirit will sometimes latch onto that. And they don't make it happen, but they help hold the pattern in place, which means it becomes even harder for us to heal, because it's not just our psychic energy keeping us stuck. It's also these little glommed on spirits that are holding us down. And so I've begun, when I'm doing healing work with people, I've begun looking always for those glommed on spirits. And I always find a couple at least, or one or two, or sometimes more. And I have the feeling they've been with this person for a while, and they don't cause the problem. So I don't want to imply they have more power than they have, but they help the problem stay in place. And so the way I see it is, when someone is ready to move forward, I can help them by removing that glommed on spirit, not just removing it, but like helping it pass on. So I feel like it's good for the spirit too, because it needs to move on. But what's necessary is that the person is willing to make the change. Because if I remove the spirit, but the person doesn't make a change, then that whatever that pattern was that brought that spirit in the first place, it's just waiting for another opportunistic spirit to glom on. So I've tried removing spirit from people who didn't ask me for their help. But I realize that it's not ultimately helpful, because the person also has to decide they want to transform their lives. But what I can do is help someone get in touch with the change they want to make. And I use the tarot cards for that, because it's really helpful in just pinpointing. I think the tarot cards are giving me messages from the person's spirit. So basically, your spirit's agenda, your soul's agenda, it comes in crystal clear. And usually when I read for people, it's not a shock to them that what comes up. Like, they know what they need to change. It just affirms for them what they already knew. So it doesn't feel like they're being told by some alien force to do something. It feels like that their deepest knowing is connected to that. So we get in touch with that. And then I do the process in which I help free up some space so that the person now knows what they need to do. I help clear out the space psychically for them to do it. And I always say, like, take action within the first 48 hours, because that's when you're free. That's when you're inspired and you're experiencing freedom, and you start moving in another direction, and you close the window for any more opportunistic little spirits to show up. So this has been going on for a while. I mean, I say a while, a few months. But I find that I've been very reluctant, or kind of sideways, about talking about it. So that's why I want to talk about it now. Because I do feel like we can only do our work in the world when we are visible, when we are honest about who we are, and when we are committed 100% to our calling. And that means, taking it on the chin. If somebody doesn't agree or understand, or someone thinks you're crazy, you just have to agree that that's going to be part of what I do, knowing that even though there's people that are not going to believe me and think that I'm bonkers, there are other people who really need help, who can't find me when I'm being cagey about what I'm called to do. And I really don't want that to happen. I really want people who need my help to find me. So it's time for me to stop being cagey and be honest. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm going to try to be honest from now on about who I am and what I'm called to be and what exactly I am doing, so that people who need to find me can find me. And people who need to make fun of me, they can get on about the business of making fun of me. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have or receive any comments. I would love it if you could be nice. That's what I would request. All right. That's all from me for now. Bye.